This video is about repairing the tension dial on a Knitmaster 700 machine, but most Knitmasters are very similar. The reason I'm repairing this is because it's got, what's happened is it just runs free. Although it does move the tension, as you can see underneath, if I turn it over, it's moving those tension cams. It won't stay in place, and that is because I have discovered the little bits underneath, which are like this. You can see they've got little serrated teeth. On my machine, these teeth have got worn away, so I've bought a replacement. So to start with, you need to take the handle off, and for that you need is that better? Yeah, you need a Phillips head screwdriver, and this is my favourite for this. I'm sure everyone has their favourites, but I know it looks big, but actually it works really well on these. It's got a tiny head, so I'm going to take these off, out. I've got these little magnetic trays, so I don't lose things here. It's magnetic, so you can drop your little screws in that, and they're really useful because knitting machines have all these little parts in them, and I get fed up with losing things, so always put your screws in there. The handle's off now, and now you have to take the screws off that are inside the metal housing. Each of these metal uprights has got a Phillips head screwdriver in there as well. Screw. Now, I discovered that Japanese knitting machines actually use a special screwdriver called a Japanese head screwdriver, and I bought a set of these from I think it might be on eBay, and that means you can really get into these Phillips type screws really well on knitting machines without reaming them out, rather than using ordinary ones. Now, the little red one I just used just works the handles really well, but these ones work great on the other screws. So now the cover's loose. What I need to do is to get this assembly off. So very gently you prise this off, which is holds it all together. And now you've got to get this assembly off. And that's held in by, there's a spring under here that holds it all in. And you have to move it to the right position. Inside here, I don't know if you can see it, probably not very well, but there's like a little cutout. This has got a circle with a cutout, and you want to line that cutout. See if I move a light over, you might be able to. Line that cutout with that peg. There's a peg in the middle there, and there's a cutout in the black piece of plastic behind it. I'll show you what I'm going to replace it with. Actually, in there. This is the bit I'm going to replace it with, and can you see that cutout? So underneath there, you need to line that peg up with the cutout, because that is underneath here. This bit's underneath there. Put my light back, and I hope I haven't messed up totally. Messed my lighting up totally. There we are. Okay, so you have to line those up, and then that allows this to come off, which is the bit I'm replacing. There's my old bits. I'm going to put those over there, because I might put my dial back on, because the one that's replacing is a bit yellowed. Now in here, let's get this light back again. You've got this. This is the bit that moves around, that selects your FL0 slip and tuck. Okay, so that's the bit that moves around, and to get this out is a bit more of a pain. Actually, you have to fiddle around with that spring a bit. So in here again, there is a little spring right inside here. You'll see it poking out. It's like it pokes out above the plastic. I think you can just about see it there actually if I wiggle this around. Oh, I just found it. Let's have the light again. There, at the bottom there, where my thumb is, there's a little spring you can just see poking out like a little V, inverted V, and you've got to press that in so that it comes off the plastic, this grey bit, and allows you to swing this round and lift it up when you've lined up the cutout and the peg, the same as you did to get the top off. So I'm going to use a screwdriver to push that spring in. Now my hand's right in the light, sorry. Push that spring in so that I can get it there. Hear the noise it made. And now that will come around and this will just lift off if I'm lucky. And the lid comes off as well. And that is the part that you can see. That's the new one. Oh, sorry, that's the old one. That's the new one. It's probably quite worn, the old one. It looks like it is. Actually, it's got some serrated bits here, so I'm going to put him over there with the bits I don't want. And now you can see the workings of the inside of the carriage, which is quite interesting. If I wasn't blinding you with the light. So this is this controls the tension. This slides up and down, and there's a peg there that when you put it back on, you must align with the inside workings of this. Underneath it, which is what we're going to put back on, you can see there is a coiled line, and what you want to make sure is you get that peg into the innermost part of that when you put it back in again, because it's as this turns, lost the light again, as this turns, it slides that tension up. Yeah, it slides this as it goes around that coil, so you need to line them up. Okay, now I was putting back the top and the this centre bit. What I forgot to say, a little trick I learned before, was before you get that far, turn your carriage over, and can you see these little bits of wood I've inserted here? I've put them in between these cams. These cams are what are activated by this control. So I've got little bits of lolly stick here, and if you just gently pull those back and put the bits of lolly stick in there, it just opens up. Try not to get any wood in your machine, of course. Just opens up this little lever here, gives you enough leeway on that little lever in there, which maybe you can see, maybe you can't. There's a little projection there, which again, like the one I talked about before, has to actually marry up with this. So those little bits of wood in there, hold them open enough to give a little bit of leeway, and you can see them. If you turn your carriage over and wiggle this, you will see them move, and you can see which ones to actually position the wood beside. But do be careful, don't hurt your cams underneath when you're doing that. And my little slidey bit here has fallen off as well. I just need to make sure that goes back on before I assemble the whole thing. That will come off if you turn the carriage over. That's it. Okay, so put your, that's the old one actually, I think. The new one or the old one? Now I've got them muddled up. That's the old one. Okay. This is the new one. Right, put them in there. And now again, you need to start over here with it on L, and then push it around, and it'll drop into place. And because that little projection is moved slightly northwards, it allows it to drop in, and it will now turn properly. If it can't connect with that prong, it won't turn properly. It will stop at about S, and you have to take it out again and then redo it. But pushing those little cams underneath downwards with a bit of wood in them really helps. Oh, and I should show you actually my old one. You can see it's a bit worn round here, which I think was the problem. When you're putting this back together, it's quite useful to know that, I mean, I actually had these 2 in 2 pieces. You have to get, there's another little clip in here that's got, I think it's 5 spaces, and this little plug of white plastic is inside, and it has to fit into one of those. Now on my old machine it was in the second one from the left, so I've made sure it lined up with that. But really it's just make sure that that your dial goes to the correct number. So if yours is slightly out of line with the numbers on the dial, then I would suggest you have a look at that and see if that's in the wrong peg. There's 5 little spaces. You'd have to undo these clips here. There are 3 clips. You push them in, and then this comes off, and then you put it back on again, and you can see there's the movement allowed here in this space here for you to have it set where you want it. So I've set mine to the same, to the the same as my old machine, old tension dial. And the other thing I would say is in here, do you remember I talked about this spring that is the bit that you have to push back? Here, can we see it? This spring here. In here, there's a spring in there. If I turn it the other way, you might see it better actually. Maybe not. There's a spring. You can just see the little sort of triangular spring here. Now, if, as with mine, my dial was a bit loose, then you need to put a screwdriver in there and just ping that spring forward a bit so it's slightly more inside this circle rather than sort of out under the cover of the carriage. And then when you put this in, you bring this forward, you line it up with 0, pop it on, and now you've got a click responsive dial. So I put the old cover on the new bit underneath, adjusted the spring, and now I've got a much more responsive dial. Right, now I need to put the centre bit on, and that pops in. Again, it fits in with the line between 0 and 10. And then you need to put the side screws back in again and the handle back on. Side screws go back in. If you've got a magnetic screwdriver, it makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, the tendency is for them to fall off and go down into the machine, which is probably what I'm about to do. I don't over tighten these because they're going through this plastic, and if you over tighten, they'll crack the plastic and eventually the cover will become useless. So not over tighten, just so they bite down. This is speaking from years of experience of having had older machines. If it does break, mend it before you go any further. Take it all apart and mend it. Use epoxy, and then these screws go in as well, the handle screws. Go back in, use my trusty red screwdriver. Where's it's gone to? My red handle screwdriver that I always find works really well. And again, you need these to be done up firmly, but what you don't want is them to totally smash the plastic by done up too tight. They will work loose if they're not tightened up sufficiently though, so it's one of those things, you know. Don't over tighten it, but tighten it up. There we are. Now the handle's back on. That works, the carriage release works. Turn the whole thing over. Oh, the wood's fallen out anyway, there we are. And now my tension dial turns my tensions. Whoops, you see them working, there we are, it's turning my tensions. And my selection lever makes the selections that I want it to. And the wood's out. So there, that's replacing the tension dial on a Knitmaster 700. And also, you know, making sure that all this goes back on correctly.